Let's get right to it. This morning at 9:40 a.m. in the 100 block of South Kilpatrick in the 11th District, U.S. Marshals and Cook County Sheriff's police officers working on the fugitive task force identified an offender who was wanted on 2 warrants. One of the warrants was for aggravated sexual assault with a firearm, and the other warrant was for escape from electronic monitoring. He cut off his bracelet. The offender was located inside a vehicle in the 100 block of South Kilpatrick, as I mentioned, in the 11th District. As the task force approached the offender, he would not remove himself from the vehicle, failed to follow their instructions. The task force officers initiated a 10-1, which is asking for additional help from other officers, at which time Chicago police officers from the 11th District and the community safety team responded to the scene to assist. The offender produced a firearm and pointed it at officers, according to preliminary reports. 3 Chicago police officers and 1 U.S. Marshal discharged their weapons, striking the offender. The offender was transported to Mount Sinai Hospital in grave condition. No officers were hit by gunfire. 3 Chicago police officers and 1 U.S. Marshal was transported to area hospitals for evaluation. Currently, the specifics of this incident, including the comprehensive use of force investigation, is being conducted by the Civilian Office of Police Accountability, COPA, with the full cooperation of the Chicago Police Department. All of the involved officers will be placed on routine administrative duties for a period of 30 days. Those are the Chicago police officers. And this matter remains under investigation, and full inquiries will be directed to COPA. With that, we'll take any questions that you have.
Did the offender fire shots?
That's yet to be investigated. No further comment beyond what the offender's actions until the investigation reveals those facts.
How many Chicago police officers were taken to the hospital or involved in the incident first, and then how many were taken to the hospital for observation to be checked out?
Direct involvement, again, 3 Chicago police officers and 1 U.S. Marshal discharged their weapons. Additional officers did respond to the scene, but preliminarily, only the 3 Chicago police officers and the 1 U.S. Marshal fired their weapons.
Okay, but there were officers taken to the hospital for observation?
Yes,
correct?
so currently, those officers that I mentioned, the 3 were taken to the hospital for evaluation.
What's the age of the man who was shot?
33.
Was he pronounced dead?
We are awaiting that from, I believe it's Sinai Hospital, but right now we're showing him grave.
Did you release his information? Did you say?
We're awaiting notification to the offender's family before we release his name.
And are you saying, so did they obviously were looking for him, correct?
For
The offender?
for aggravated sexual assault with a firearm and escape from electronic monitoring. So this person was on electronic monitoring. He cut off his bracelet, and we were looking for him to bring him in for those violations.
Do you have a date as to when he cut off his ankle monitor and when this?
We don't have that date.
Okay.
Do you have date when the warrant was issued?
We have the date of, so December 4th, 2020. We filed a petition for a violation of bond with an arrest warrant for the offender. And we were serving that arrest warrant this morning, when these events transpired. That indictment was for 15 felony counts of aggravated criminal sexual assault.
Did the man live in that block?
We believe so.
Was anyone else in the vehicle with the man?
No.
Any
Last
other
question.
questions?
Last question.
What is the U.S. Marshal's role in this? In the investigation?
They were part of the fugitive task force.
And then just, so that you just speak to, I mean, this is the second shooting of this level of import. Just talk to your officers, but also to the public about just this level of violence that seems to continue.
I think the primary point I want to make is the bravery and courage of law enforcement, facing down these violent offenders, bringing them to justice to protect the people of Chicago. That's number one. That it's a very dangerous time to be in law enforcement. These officers face death day in and day out to protect the people of Chicago. And this today highlights just another incident recently of officers being committed and dedicated to risk everything to protect the people of Chicago. But it will also highlight the impunity that these offenders mete out their violence, regardless of whether it's criminal on criminal violence, gang on gang violence, or just some disagreement where people are not, conflict resoluting in a peaceful way. They turn to the gun, to include that violence against police officers with impunity. There's no regard for law enforcement's presence at these scenes to bring them to justice. They will fire a weapon at law enforcement or at others for what appears to be no apparent reason. It would have been easier just to give up and face the consequences of your behavior. Instead, this person points a gun at us. So it just highlights several things, but the most important thing it highlights is the courage and bravery of our Chicago police officers, along with our other law enforcement partners at the U.S. Marshal's Office.
What concerns do you have for this weekend? With obviously on the heels of last weekend.
So one of the concerns I don't have is whether or not Chicago police officers will rise to the occasion and face what is a violent crime wave going across this country. We ask people to comply with the law, put your guns down. We ask them to, take us up on the many social services we offer. We ask them to be influenced by street outreach and violence interrupters. We ask them to consider other alternatives to resolving their conflicts. We ask them to do a lot of things. And our hopes are that others will be influencing some of these offenders, the faith community and others. A lot of nonprofits do a lot of great work. I just can't, give enough accolades to the many street outreach workers that are working the overnight hours with us to try to calm down these conflicts. So the concern is not from a standpoint of whether or not officers and others who are on the ground will do their part. We are doing our part to make Chicago safer. But we need the court system to do its part. This person was on electronic monitoring after 15 counts of criminal sexual assault with a firearm, and he pointed a gun at our officers with ill intent. And that's the point I want to make.
Do you think because of bail reform that's why he was out, and should he have been out after 15 felony counts?
I would say it this way. If this debate that we're having saves one life, all the criticism is worth it. That our criminal justice system was based on the one victim. The one victim. I've mentioned Jason Adams, 7-year-old Jason Adams, was killed by someone on electronic monitoring. Our law enforcement partners here, they're standing with me, we are advocates for the victims. The one victim is good enough for us. There should be no statistical, anecdotal errors where we disregard the one victim. The one victim. And you call it what you want. You want to call it finger pointing, you want to call it, we all need to sit down. No, we are advocates and unapologetically advocates for the one victim. The one victim who is at the hands of someone on electronic monitoring is either killed or violently assaulted, means you ought to take a second look at this program. And we're not gonna apologize for advocating for the one victim. The one victim. One person murdered is one too many. Thank you very much.